Hayden, we're going to start with a player who's consistently polarizing, Josh Jacobs, using the Fantasy Life ADP grid for underdog ADP. We can see that Josh Jacobs goes at pick 53 overall. He's the RB12 on your site. Meanwhile, on Sleeper and Redraft ADP, he goes as the RB11, but goes 26 picks earlier, 27 picks earlier, which tells you everything about how wide receiver hungry underdog is this year. Much as we all love it, it is a bit crazy. He got the contract that on the surface of things looks like a decent deal. 4 years, 48 millions. But we know the Packers don't always guarantee that much money into the future, so it's possibly not quite as big as it looks on the surface. He's coming off career low in yards after contact per attempt last year, had only 9 runs over 10 yards. Balancing that against the fact that he could be the clear running back one in Green Bay. Are you buying in at these prices, or are you calling him overvalued?
He's one of my highest drafted players. So I think the first thing we need to talk about is 2 years ago, he was basically the guy you needed. So we've seen this before. Josh Jacobs has been the guy you needed in fantasy at a sunk cost. We've seen him have an efficient season. Last year was a total disaster. Wasn't there in training camp. The Raiders were obviously really bad. The Raiders offensive line in particular was way worse than it was. They, at least a couple years ago, early on in his career, they had a really good center. They had some good tackle play. The last season, that was just not the case. And players like David Montgomery, for example, they were caught in a really bad Bears situation. All of a sudden, they go to a good offensive line, good offensive environment in Detroit, and then all of a sudden, their efficiency rebounds. I have a lot of faith with the Packers. I think a lot of the running back stuff is, do you have the ability to handle a bunch of volume? Josh Jacobs led the NFL in carries just 2 seasons ago. We know he's a volume guy. It's one of the first things that they said about Josh Jacobs when they signed him is he can handle a huge workload. Then the second part is, how good is the team? The Packers, from week 12 through the end of the season, including the playoffs, they were the second best team in EPA per play. They draft the first round offensive lineman. This year, they're just always doing better than what the kind of skilled talent seems, because Matt LaFleur is such a good offensive play caller. We saw Aaron Jones, once he came back from his own injury last season, he had elite running back usage down the stretch. So in terms of volume, I have faith in Jacobs. In terms of environment, I have a ton of faith in the Packers. And if we can kind of put those best seasons together for Josh Jacobs, I think he'd be one of the most, the highest upside players, not even just in the 5th and 4th round, but of fantasy period. The Packers could be that good on offense, especially once we kind of consider how that kind of coaching scheme is changing. Like we saw with Sean McVay, they were kind of an outside zone team with Todd Gurley. Then last year with Kyron Williams, they became a duo team, run right at you because they have light boxes. I think that's what the Packers are going to be trying to do here. They were an outside zone team with Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones. Now they want to go right at you because now they can spread teams open and everyone's playing 2 high shells. They have the wide receiver depth in Jordan Love to make it work. And now they need someone to run right at you. And I think that's what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs this year. So I'm buying it. I know that the efficiency is worrisome for some, but I just think that the Packers environment's going to kind of handle all of that.
How much are you worried about the fact that over the years, Matt LaFleur has used 2 running back systems to the point that he kept Derrick Henry off the field because he was using Dion Lewis? Is that something that bothers you too much, or do you think that Josh Jacobs is going to be a lot better than Marshawn Lloyd is?
So I think we can kind of use that in 2 different ways. That Derrick Henry season, that was when he was a rookie. So you're keeping the really good rookie on the bench. Isn't that kind of what's going to happen with Marshawn Lloyd here? I think that's kind of the angle I'm taking with that. And Dion Lewis coming off a good season. That was Derrick Henry rookie year. So, and that was also so long ago. And I think that LaFleur wants to use 2 running backs because the entire league basically does that. But also Aaron Jones is nowhere near as big as Josh Jacobs. And Aaron Jones has never been Mr. Workload at any point in his career. That's exactly what Josh Jacobs does. So I don't know. They gave him a lot of money and they did not have to cut Aaron Jones this offseason. They did that for a reason. They thought that Josh Jacobs was an upgrade. I think I keep going back to the skill set thing where I think the style of runs the Packers want to do this year is going to be more north-south than it has ever been before. And that's just because we saw Sean McVay do that. And obviously LaFleur and McVay are very close and had a ton of success. And even with Christian McCaffrey, a lot more north-south runs than we kind of seen from that scheme when it was Raheem Mostert and everyone going to the edge. So I think that this tree is kind of focusing in on a certain type of running back. And I think that Josh Jacobs is going to be able to handle that. And if the Packers are turned into another top 5 offense, like we saw in glimpses last year, I don't see why Josh Jacobs can't be like a top 5 running back.
Nice. Rich, how are you feeling about Jacobs?
Yeah, I really like him. I think Hayden made some fantastic points. I think, on the Aaron Jones point about, him being a smaller back, missing time, he's missed time in 5 of the last 7 seasons for the Packers. Like, he is often injured. Josh Jacobs is not that guy, and I think that he can carry that full workload. On the contract, I think the interesting thing is the way the Packers structure it. They're much like the Bengals in that they don't like guaranteeing money into year 2 and beyond. But that basically means for Josh Jacobs, this is essentially a series of 1-year deals. The Packers can save money moving on from him after this season. So, if you want to buy into that contract year narrative, I know, Tom, you did an article about it, and he is playing for that future money. He is playing for his livelihood moving forward. And I think the other thing around the offensive line, look, this is potentially one of the better offensive lines if you remove the left tackle. I think I've got a massive question about, a 7th round sophomore pick that's going to be starting at left tackle. But outside of that, I think the other 4 guys are going to be very good. And, yes, that's a big issue potentially for the passing game, but what's the least important offensive line position for the run game is the left tackle. So I'm not worried about that impact on Josh Jacobs, and I think that could be really interesting. And, if the left tackle is struggling, maybe that means we're going to lean more on Josh Jacobs, that veteran back, in for pass pro, rather than the rookie, who we know rookies tend to struggle in pass pro. That could mean Josh Jacobs gets more time in those obvious passing situations, which could mean more dump offs, more receiving work, and could be really exciting for his fantasy value.
That was going to be my last note, Rich, was in these like press conferences that have been going viral as like the reason why we should be drafting Marshawn Lloyd, which I agree. It's all the same reasons I'm talking about with Josh Jacobs. The offense could be so good. That's the reason why I'm also drafting Marshawn Lloyd. But in those same press conferences, LaFleur keeps saying, I want Josh Jacobs to catch more passes than he ever has done before. Those tweets never go viral. That's kind of interesting how those ones never go viral. Everyone says we need the legendary season. We need to catch passes. The coach says we need him to catch passes. That seems pretty promising to me. So yeah, he's not going to have 80% of the snaps. Very few running backs do. This could be 65-30 in favor of Josh Jacobs. But Marshawn Lloyd to me was a explosive runner, very intriguing, high upside, but also low floor just because of how chaotic of a rusher he is, in my opinion. And I'm not sure how, if he's going to be like the most trustworthy rookie out there, at least early on in the season. So as long as Josh Jacobs is motivated and healthy, I think the offensive line difference between the Packers and the Raiders last year is going to take really kind of silence a lot of like the efficiency concerns. And I think it's going to be on Marshawn Lloyd to earn playing time. And I think that he'll be able to do that. But we've seen a lot of 3rd round running backs kind of just disappear.
If you're finding us for the first time, hit the subscribe button. Loads more redraft, loads of best ball content, and loads of dynasty content right here. We are closing in on 2,500 subscribers. All you got to do is hit that button.